The Galactic Proving Grounds floated in neutral space, a massive station where civilizations settled their disputes without destroying planets. Commander Velzara stood in the observation deck, her purple armor reflecting the lights from 1,000 different worlds. She was Krell, one of the most feared warrior species in known space. Her kind had ruled the battlefield for generations. Today, she came to watch and perhaps find a worthy fighter to join her warband. The arena below was enormous. It could change its environment to match any world. Desert heat, frozen tundra, crushing gravity, or thin air. Whatever the challenge required, the arena provided. Velzara had seen hundreds of fights here. Most bored her now. "The humans arrive," said Krava, her second in command. He pointed to the entrance where a small group walked in. They wore simple gray suits, nothing like the battle armor other species displayed. The crowd began to laugh. Velzara studied them with interest. Humans were new to galactic society. Their planet was classified as a death world, full of dangers that would kill most species. Yet these creatures looked weak, small bodies, soft skin, no natural weapons like claws or fangs. She wondered how they survived at all. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "The challenge begins. Each species will send their champion for unarmed combat. Standard gravity. No environmental suits. Fight until submission or unconsciousness." Species after species presented their warriors. The thorax sent a creature covered in rock-like plates. The Silith sent a fighter with 4 arms and lightning-fast reflexes. Each champion was impressive. Each won their match easily. Then came the human's turn. A single human stepped forward from their group. He was average height for his species, which meant small compared to almost everyone else. He wore a simple athletic suit. His black hair was cut short. His eyes looked nervous. "That is their champion?" Krava laughed. "This will be over in seconds." The announcer spoke again. "Representing humanity, Tay, engineering specialist." More laughter filled the arena. "An engineer? Not even a soldier." Velzara leaned forward. Something caught her attention. The human's hands were shaking. But he walked into the arena anyway, fear and courage together. Interesting. The Krell champion entered from the opposite side. Grath was a legend in the fighting pits. 7 feet tall, muscles like steel cables, claws that could tear through metal. He had never lost a match. His record was 300 wins, 0 defeats. The fight began with a simple bell tone. Grath moved fast for his size. He crossed the arena in 3 massive strides and swung his clawed hand at Tay's head. The human barely ducked. The miss was so close that Grath's claws cut through a few strands of Tay's hair. The second attack came immediately. Grath grabbed Tay by the chest and lifted him like a child's toy. Then he threw the human across the arena. Tay hit the wall hard. The sound echoed. The crowd cheered. Velzara expected the match to end. Most species would stay down after that. But Tay stood up. Blood ran from his nose. He wiped it away and raised his hands again. Grath charged. This time, he landed a solid hit to Tay's ribs. The human flew backward and crashed into the ground. Again, the crowd roared. Again, Tay got up. "Why does he continue?" Krava asked. "He cannot win." Velzara said nothing. She watched closely now. Something was different. Tay's eyes had changed. The fear was still there. But something else burned behind it. Something old and primal. The fight continued. Grath hit Tay, again and again. Each time, the human fell. Each time, he rose. But Velzara noticed something the crowd did not. Tay was learning. After the 5th knockdown, he dodged slightly better. After the 7th, he blocked, instead of taking the full impact. After the 10th, his breathing became steady and controlled. Grath grew frustrated. Prey was supposed to stay down. This small creature kept standing. It was unnatural. The Krell warrior roared and charged again, all technique forgotten in his anger. That was the mistake. Tay moved. Not away, but to the side, and slightly forward. Grath's massive fist passed through empty air. Before the Krell could recover, Tay struck. His fist hit Grath's elbow joint, right where the armor plates separated. The exact weak point. Grath's arm went numb. Shock crossed his face. Tay did not stop. He moved like water now, smooth and controlled. Every strike hit a nerve cluster or joint. Grath swung wildly. But the human was never where the attacks landed. The crowd went silent. They were watching something they had never seen before. Grath's knee buckled from a precise kick. As he fell forward, Tay grabbed the back of his head and drove his knee into Grath's face. Once, twice, 3 times. The Krell warrior's eyes rolled back. He collapsed onto the arena floor and did not move. The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. Aliens shouted in 100 languages. Some thought it was a trick. Others demanded to review the footage. The human delegation sat frozen in disbelief. Tay stood over Grath's unconscious body. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Blood covered his knuckles. One eye was swelling shut. Bruises already formed across his ribs. But his eyes... Velsara could not look away from his eyes. They held the cold certainty of a predator that had just made its kill. "Impossible," Krava whispered. "An engineer. An untrained engineer." Velsara stood. Her warrior instinct screamed inside her chest. The same feeling she got when she found a perfect weapon or a flawless battle strategy. This human was special. Not because he was strong. He was weak by galactic standards. Not because he was skilled. He had barely any technique. But because when every logical thought said to quit, when his body was broken, and his chances were 0, he simply refused to stop. That refusal, that burning will to continue no matter what, was the rarest quality in the universe. It could not be taught. It could not be purchased. You either had it, or you did not. And this human had it in abundance. Velsara made her decision instantly. She turned to Krava. "Prepare a formal declaration. I am invoking Velkara." Krava's eyes widened. "Commander, the right of claiming has never been used for another species. Then I will be the first." Velsara watched as medics entered the arena to help both fighters. Tay waved them away from himself and pointed to Grath instead, even in victory, showing honor to his opponent. "Yes," Velsara thought. "That warrior belongs to me." The medical bay hummed with activity. Tay sat on an examination table while a robot scanned his injuries. 3 cracked ribs, severe bruising across his torso, minor concussion. His hands shook as the adrenaline finally wore off. He could not believe what he had done. "You are lucky to be alive," the medical robot said in its flat voice. "Most species would have died from the first impact." Tay laughed, then winced from the pain. Lucky was not the word he would use. Terrified seemed more accurate. He had volunteered for the match only because their actual combat specialist broke his leg during the journey to the station. Someone had to fight, and Tay was the only one who said yes when everyone else stayed silent. The door opened. Hana rushed in, the human diplomatic liaison. Her face showed relief and anger in equal measure. "What were you thinking? You could have been killed." "Someone had to do it," Tay said quietly. "We couldn't refuse the challenge without looking weak. The other species already doubt if we belong in the galactic community." Hana sighed. She knew he was right, but that did not make it easier to watch. "Well, you have certainly made an impression. The entire station is talking about nothing else. A human defeated Grath in unarmed combat. It is unprecedented." Before Tay could respond, the door opened again. Velsara entered, filling the room with her presence. She was even more intimidating up close. Purple armor covered her body. Scars marked her arms and face. Each one a story of battles survived. Her eyes, yellow with vertical pupils, locked onto Tay. "I wish to speak with the human warrior," Velsara said. Her voice was deep and carried absolute authority. Hana stepped between them instinctively. "Tay needs rest. Whatever you want can wait." It cannot. Velzara looked at Hana with something close to respect. You protect your pack member. That is honorable. But I come not as a threat. I come with an offer. Tay spoke from the examination table. What kind of offer? Velzara moved closer. Krava followed behind her, carrying a datapad. I invoke Velkara. The right of claiming. You will join my warband as my battle partner and student. You will train with the Krell, fight alongside us, and share equally in glory and spoils. This is the highest honor my people can bestow. Silence filled the medical bay. Hana's translator worked overtime trying to find equivalent terms in human languages. You want to claim him? Like property? No. Velsara's tone sharpened. Like a partner. Like an equal. Velkara is not ownership. It is recognition. When a warrior sees potential in another, they may offer this bond. Both sides must agree. Both benefit. I teach him our ways of combat. He fights with my warband. We share our victories together. Tay looked at Hana, confused. She seemed equally lost. This was not covered in any diplomatic briefing. Has this ever been offered to a non-Krell before? Hana asked. Never, Krava answered. Velkara is sacred among our people. The commander honors your species by extending it to your warrior. I am not a warrior, Tay said. The words came out before he could stop them. I am an engineer. I design ship systems. I fix broken equipment. That fight today was the first real combat of my life. Velzara moved even closer. She studied Tay with the intensity of a predator examining prey. You think being a warrior is about training? About technique? Those things can be taught to anyone. True warriors are defined by what cannot be taught. When Grath hit you, you fell. A fact. When he hit you again, you fell again. Another fact. By all logic, you should have stayed down. Accepted defeat. Preserved yourself for another day. She paused, her yellow eyes burning with intensity. But you stood. Again and again. You learned while being beaten. You adapted while in pain. You found Grath's weaknesses by letting him hit you, studying his patterns through your own suffering. That is not something training provides. That is something you are born with. That fire inside that refuses to quit even when quitting is the only logical choice. Tay felt his chest tighten. Everything she said was true. During the fight, some part of his brain had simply refused to acknowledge that he could lose. Every time Grath knocked him down, something primal inside had screamed at him to get back up. Not because he had a plan. Not because he thought he could win. But because stopping was not acceptable to some ancient part of himself. I need to think about this, Tay said. No, Velzara replied. You need to answer now. Velkara cannot wait. The offer is made in the moment of recognition. You accept or decline immediately. Hana put her hand on Tay's shoulder. You do not have to do this. We can find another way to prove humanity's worth. But Tay was not thinking about humanity anymore. He was thinking about the fight. That moment when everything became clear, and his body moved on pure instinct. The feeling of finally understanding something he had always known but never acknowledged. Humans were not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the toughest, but they could keep going when everyone else stopped. I have one condition, Tay said finally. Velzara tilted her head. Speak. My friend Sung comes with me. He is a xenobiologist. He studies alien life forms. He can help me understand Krell biology and the biology of other species. It will make me a better fighter. And he documents everything for human records. Velzara considered this. Your packmate is welcome. We Krell understand the value of specialists. A warrior who knows the anatomy of his enemies is twice as dangerous. She extended her clawed hand. Do you accept Velkara? Tay looked at that hand. Claws that could tear him apart. Attached to a warrior who had probably killed more enemies than Tay had met people in his entire life. This was insane, Absolutely insane. He took her hand. I accept. Velzara's grip was firm but controlled. She did not crush his hand, though she easily could have. Then you are mine, Tay of Earth, and I am yours. We are bound by Velkara until one of us falls in battle, or the bond is mutually dissolved. What threatens you threatens me. What honors you honors me. We are pack now. Krava stepped forward and placed his hand over their joined hands. Witnessed and recorded. The bond is recognized. Hana looked like she wanted to argue, but she stayed quiet. She could see something in Tay's eyes. He had made his choice, and deep down, she understood why. Humanity needed to prove itself. One human fighting alongside the galaxy's most respected warriors would do more for their reputation than 1,000 diplomatic meetings. When do we leave? Tay asked. Tomorrow, Velsara answered. Rest tonight. Heal. Tomorrow, your real training begins. She released his hand and turned to leave. At the door, she looked back. You surprised the galaxy today, little human. Let us see how much more you can surprise them. After she left, Tay lay back on the examination table. His body hurt everywhere. His future had just changed completely. And somehow, he felt more alive than ever before. The Crimson Talon was unlike any ship Tay had ever seen. Krell vessels were built for war. Every surface was reinforced metal. Every corridor wide enough for warriors in full armor. The gravity was set higher than Earth standard. Walking from his quarters to the training deck left Tay exhausted. Sung met him outside the training area. His friend carried 3 data pads and looked excited despite the early hour. I have been studying Krell physiology all night. Did you know their muscle fibers are 3 times denser than ours? And their bone structure can withstand impacts that would turn a human into paste. Great, Tay muttered. That makes me feel so much better about training with them. The training deck doors opened. 20 Krell warriors stopped their exercises and turned to stare. Velzara stood in the center, her armor removed to show the lean muscle beneath. She wore only training clothes, but somehow looked more dangerous without the armor. This is Tay, Velsara announced. He is my Velkara partner. He trains with us as an equal. Treat him with the same respect you show me. The warriors looked skeptical. Tay could not blame them. He was half the size of the smallest Krell. But they said nothing. Velzara's word was law. We begin with endurance, Velzara said. 10 laps around the training deck. Full speed. The warriors exploded into motion. Tay ran after them and immediately fell behind. The Krell moved like charging animals. All power and speed. By the 3rd lap, Tay was last by a huge margin. By the 5th lap, his lungs burned. By the 7th, the first Krell warriors began to slow. By the 9th lap, Tay passed the first warrior. By the 10th lap, only Velzara and 3 others finished before him. The warriors, who had slowed to a walk, stared at Tay as he crossed the finish line. He was breathing hard, but not collapsing. Sung checked his datapad excitedly. Fascinating. Krell physiology is built for explosive power, not sustained effort. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We can run for hours if needed. Interesting, Velzara said. She did not sound surprised. Combat drill next. Partner exercises. Krava stepped forward. He was even larger than Grath had been, with scars covering his arms. I will partner with the human. For the next hour, Tay learned the difference between arena combat and real training. Krava did not try to hurt him, but every technique was designed for maximum damage. Block an attack wrong, and your arm breaks. Dodge too slow and you get knocked unconscious. The Krell style was all about overwhelming force. Tay could not match it. But he could survive it. You are too defensive, Krava said after throwing Tay for the 20th time. You only react, never attack. Because I cannot hurt you, Tay replied honestly. Your skin is too tough, your bones too strong. If I hit you with full force, I break my hand and you feel nothing. Sung looked up from his notes. Actually, there are weak points. Nerve clusters near the joints. Pressure points where major blood vessels run close to the surface. The eyes are vulnerable regardless of species. If Tay cannot overpower you, he should target precision points. Krava laughed. Good luck finding those points while I am trying to crush you. But Tay was thinking. During the fight with Grath, he had found weak points by accident. What if he studied them on purpose? What if instead of learning to fight like a Krell, he learned to fight like a human against Krell? The next round was different. Tay did not try to block Krava's strikes head-on. Instead, he redirected them. Used the Krell's own momentum against him. When Krava grabbed him, Tay targeted the nerve cluster at his wrist. The giant warrior's hand went numb for a moment. Just long enough for Tay to escape. Better, Velsara observed. You are beginning to understand. Do not fight their fight. Fight your own. The days turned into weeks. Tay trained every day, and every day he learned something new. He could not match Krell's strength, so he learned leverage. He could not match their armor-like skin, so Sung taught him every vulnerable point on 20 different species. He could not match their explosive speed, so he learned to fight for hours while they tired. The warband slowly accepted him, not as an equal in strength, but as something different, something useful. Then the call came. Velsara gathered the warband in the briefing room. A hologram showed a mining station in orbit around a gas giant. Pirates have taken the station. 200 hostages, mostly civilians. The station's life support is failing. We have 6 hours before everyone inside dies. How many pirates? Krava asked. 40. Well armed. Entrenched positions. They know we are coming. Velsara looked around the room. This will not be easy. Tay studied the hologram. The station's design was standard for mining operations. He had worked on similar structures during his engineering training. Something occurred to him. The maintenance ducts. Everyone looked at him. Mining stations have extensive duct systems for accessing machinery. They run throughout the entire structure. Most species cannot fit through them, but humans can. Krava dismissed the idea immediately. We are warriors, not maintenance workers. We attack directly and lose half the warband, breaking through their fortified positions, Tay countered, while hostages die from failing life support. Or we use the advantage we have. I am small enough to move through the station's infrastructure. Sung can identify the critical systems. We disable their defenses from inside, while you attack from outside. Velsara studied the hologram thoughtfully. It is risky. You would be alone in hostile territory. I would be doing exactly what humans evolved to do, Tay said, moving through difficult terrain, pursuing prey that thinks it is safe, wearing down the enemy until they make a mistake. Sung nodded enthusiastically. I can map the entire duct system from the station's public blueprints. We can identify where the pirates are likely positioned based on defensive strategy. Tay can move through areas they cannot even access. Velsara made her decision. We try the humans' plan. Krava, you lead the frontal assault. Make it loud. Make them focus on you. Tay, you and Sung infiltrate through the maintenance system. Disable what you can. Create chaos. When I give the signal, we hit them from both sides. 6 hours later, Tay crawled through a duct barely wide enough for his shoulders. Sweat poured down his face. His muscles ached from the awkward positions, but he kept moving. Sung's voice guided him through his earpiece, directing him toward key locations. Next junction, turn left. There should be a power relay station. 2 pirates guarding it according to thermal scans. Tay reached the junction and looked through a vent grate. 2 pirates sat below, heavily armed and bored. They clearly did not expect any threat from the ceiling. Tay carefully removed the grate and dropped a small device Sung had prepared. Concentrated sedative gas. Harmless to most species in small doses but enough to cause unconsciousness in an enclosed space. The pirates collapsed within 30 seconds. 2 down, Tay whispered. 38 to go. For the next 2 hours, Tay moved through the station like a ghost. He disabled security systems, sabotaged weapons, released pressure in key corridors to create confusion. Sung guided him to every critical point, using his knowledge of station systems and biology. When Velsara's assault finally began, The pirates found themselves fighting on two fronts. Half their systems were offline. Their defensive positions had been compromised from within. Warriors they thought were asleep were actually sedated. Confusion spread through their ranks. The battle was over in 20 minutes. 0 hostage casualties. 3 wounded warband members, all minor injuries. That night, the warband celebrated their victory. Krava approached Tay with a cup of Krell drinking spirits. "I was wrong to dismiss your plan. You fought well today." "I did not fight at all," Tay said honestly. "I just crawled through tight spaces and dropped sleeping gas." "You hunted," Velzara corrected. She placed her hand on Tay's shoulder, the gesture of deep respect among her people. "You stalked your prey through terrain they could not follow. You struck from positions they could not defend. You used your natural advantages instead of copying ours. That is what makes you valuable." Tay felt something shift inside him. He was not trying to become Krell. He was learning to be a better human. And that made all the difference. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within a month, everyone knew about the human fighting alongside Commander Velzara's warband. At first, the stories sounded like jokes. A small, weak creature from a newly discovered world, partnering with the legendary Krell warrior. Impossible. Then the combat footage spread. Tay fighting in ways no one had seen before, using environments as weapons, turning his smaller size into an advantage. Never stopping. Never surrendering. No matter how badly hurt. The jokes stopped. Questions began. More humans started receiving offers from alien military groups. Hana's diplomatic channels overflowed with requests. Could Earth provide soldiers? Trainers? Tactical advisors? The galactic community was beginning to understand that humans brought something unique to warfare. Tay sat in the Crimson Talon's observation deck, watching stars streak past. 3 months had passed since he joined Velzara's warband. His body had changed. Constant training in high gravity had made him stronger. His reflexes had sharpened. Scars marked his arms and chest, each one a lesson learned. Sung entered carrying his ever-present data pads. "I have been analyzing the combat data from our last 15 engagements. Your win rate has increased by 40%. The warband's overall effectiveness has improved by 22% since you joined." "Because I am that good?" Tay asked with a small smile. "Because you think differently," Sung replied. "Krell tactics are based on overwhelming force and direct confrontation. You introduce unpredictability. The enemy prepares for a Krell assault and instead gets a human infiltrating their systems. It creates confusion, and confusion creates openings." The door opened again. Velzara entered, her expression serious. "We have received a priority communication from the Stellar Concordate. They request our presence immediately. All of us, including you two." The Concordate's council chamber was designed to intimidate. Representatives from 50 species sat in a circular arrangement, each in their designated section. Velzara's warband stood in the center, with Tay and Sung slightly behind. The High Chancellor, a being made of crystalline structures, spoke first. Its voice came from a translator since its natural communication was through light patterns. "We face an extinction-level threat. The Ravager swarm has entered our territory." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Tay leaned toward Sung. "What is the Ravager swarm?" Murmurs. Sung's face had gone pale. "A hive species. They consume entire civilizations. 17 species have been completely destroyed by them. They adapt to any defense, overwhelm through pure numbers, and never stop until everything is consumed." A hologram appeared in the chamber's center, showing a star system. Red markers indicated swarm positions. There were thousands of them. "They will reach our core worlds within 2 weeks, the Chancellor continued. "We have assembled our combined fleets. But projections show a 70% chance of defeat." "Well, we have a 70% chance of defeat." Admiral Day stepped forward from the human delegation. Tay had met him once, briefly. The Admiral was a career military officer, one of the few humans with actual combat command experience. "With respect, Chancellor," Your projections are based on traditional defensive strategies. The swarm excels at breaking those strategies. And you have a better suggestion? A reptilian representative asked with barely hidden contempt. Your species has been in space for barely a decade, which means we have not spent centuries locked into one way of thinking, Day replied calmly. He gestured, and a new hologram appeared. The swarm is like a flood. You cannot stop a flood by standing in front of it. You redirect it, channel it, exhaust it, make it chase you through terrain where its numbers mean nothing. You propose retreat? The reptilian representative hissed. I propose guerrilla warfare, Day corrected. Mobile units. Hit and run tactics. Destroy their logistics. Poison their resource gathering. Make them chase us through asteroid fields, nebulas, and planetary rings where their massive formations become liabilities instead of advantages. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some called it cowardice, others called it foolishness. A few looked thoughtful. Velzara's voice cut through the noise like a blade. I support the humans' plan. Silence fell. When Velzara spoke, people listened. For months, I have fought alongside Tay of Earth. I have watched him defeat enemies that should have killed him. Not through superior strength, but through adaptation and persistence. He does not fight the way his opponents expect. He fights the way his species evolved to fight. As hunters who never stop pursuing their prey, she turned to face the council. You want to fight the swarm like Krell? Stand your ground, clash armies. Die with honor. But humans do not fight like Krell. They fight like the apex predators they are. They hunt. And right now, we need hunters more than warriors. The Chancellor's crystalline form pulsed with different colors. You would trust the fate of the Concordat to untested human tactics? I would trust the fate of the Concordat to proven human results, Velzara replied. Give them a chance. Let human units work with our forces. If their methods fail, we still have our fleets for traditional battle. After hours of debate, the Council agreed to a compromise. Human tactical teams would be integrated with alien forces. Admiral Day would coordinate the overall strategy. They had 2 weeks to prepare. Tay found himself assigned to a mixed unit. 10 humans, 15 Krell, 8 Thorak, and 5 Silith. Their mission was to harass swarm supply lines in the Kelmar system. Krava commanded the unit, with Tay as tactical advisor. I still think this is strange, Krava said as they prepared to deploy. Humans giving orders to Krell. I am not giving orders, Tay replied. I am offering suggestions based on how humans would approach this problem. You decide if they make sense. Their target was a swarm resource harvesting operation on an ice moon. The swarm used massive processors to convert raw materials into the biological matter they needed. Defending it were approximately 500 swarm drones. Traditional tactics would be a frontal assault. Overwhelm the defenders through superior firepower. But that would cost lives and take time they did not have. Tay studied the moon's geography through Sung's scans. The ice layer is unstable. Beneath it is liquid water with extreme pressure. If we create fractures in the right locations, we can cause massive displacement events. Bury their processors under tons of ice and water. And how do we create these fractures without dying? A Thorak warrior asked. We do not stand and fight. We plant charges and run. Make them chase us across the moon's surface while the charges activate. Use their own numbers against them. Pack them into kill zones where the ice will collapse. It sounded insane. But Krava agreed to try. The operation began at midnight, moon time. Tay's team moved across the ice field in small groups. They planted explosive charges at structural weak points Sung had identified. The swarm detected them quickly and sent drones to intercept. The chase began. Human team members led the pursuit. They knew the routes, knew where the ice was stable, knew where the charges waited. The swarm drones followed in massive numbers. Exactly as planned. When the first charges detonated, the ice moon shuddered. Huge fractures spread across the surface. Entire sections collapsed into the liquid water beneath. Swarm drones fell by the hundreds, crushed under collapsing ice or drowned in the water below. The resource processors, built in the lowest areas for efficiency, were buried under avalanches of ice and debris. Tay's team escaped with 0 casualties. The swarm lost their entire harvesting operation. Similar results came from other human-led teams across 3 star systems. The swarm, evolved to overwhelm static defenses, had no answer for prey that refused to be cornered. Their numbers meant nothing in asteroid fields where only small ships could maneuver. Their adaptation protocols failed against tactics that changed every engagement. A week later, Tay stood on the bridge of the Crimson Talon with Velzara, watching tactical displays. The swarm was pulling back from 2 systems. Not defeated, but frustrated. Confused. For the first time in their recorded history, they faced an enemy they could not simply overwhelm. They will adapt eventually, Velzara said. Learn to counter human tactics. Then we will adapt faster, Tay replied. That is what humans do. We do not stop. We do not quit. We keep changing until we find what works. Velzara placed her hand on his shoulder. The gesture had become familiar, a sign of respect and partnership. I claimed you as my warrior thinking I would teach you to fight. Instead, you have taught an entire galaxy a new way to wage war. We are not done yet, Tay said, looking at the displays. The swarm is still out there, still dangerous. Yes, Velzara agreed. But now they know what it means to be hunted by humans, and that changes everything. The Ravager swarm had never retreated before. In 17 conquered civilizations, they had always pushed forward until nothing remained. But now, they pulled back to regroup. The Concordat had bought time, but everyone knew the swarm would return with new tactics. Tay sat in the strategy room aboard the Concordat flagship. Around the table sat military leaders from a dozen species. Admiral Day stood at the holographic display, showing the current situation. The swarm has consolidated in the Kestris system, Day explained. 3 planets, 2 asteroid belts, and a nebula. They are gathering resources and rebuilding their forces. Our scouts report they are constructing something massive in orbit around the 2nd planet. A staging ground for a final assault, Velzara said. They will overwhelm us with everything they have. Then we strike first, suggested a Thorak general. Hit them before they are ready. Day shook his head. They want us to attack. The Kestris system is a natural fortress. Narrow approach vectors. Perfect defensive positions. If we commit our fleets there, we lose everything. So we wait for them to attack us? The general's frustration was clear. Tay studied the hologram quietly. Something about the swarm's positioning bothered him. They were not just consolidating. They were concentrating everything in one place. All their resources, all their forces, everything. They are abandoning their adaptation strategy, Tay said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. The swarm's strength is adaptation. When one tactic fails, they change and try another. But now, they are committing everything to one massive force. Why? Sung pulled up data on his pad. Because we broke their primary advantage. The swarm wins through overwhelming numbers in open combat. We denied them open combat, forced them into terrain where numbers mean nothing, made them chase us instead of holding ground. They cannot adapt to an enemy that refuses to engage on their terms. So they are going back to basics, Velzara realized. Build the largest force possible. Hope that sheer size will overcome any tactical advantage we have. Tay stood and manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the 2nd planet. If they are putting everything in one place, then that place becomes their weakness. We cannot attack their fortress directly, but we do not need to. We need to destroy whatever they are building. Impossible, the Thorak general said. Even our best stealth ships cannot get close. The system is too heavily defended. Ships cannot, Tay agreed. But people can. The room fell silent. Admiral Day understood immediately. An infiltration team. Small enough to avoid detection, fast enough to reach the target before reinforcements arrive. It would be a suicide mission, Velzara stated flatly. Even if you reached the target and destroyed it, escape would be nearly impossible. Tay met her eyes. Humans are very good at impossible things. The argument that followed lasted hours. The council called it too risky. The military called it foolish. But no one offered a better plan. Finally, the chancellor made the decision. The infiltration would proceed. Volunteers only. 50 humans volunteered immediately. Velzara's entire warband volunteered. Teams from 6 other species added their names. From those volunteers, they selected 30. The best of the best. Tay, Velzara, Krava, Sung, and 26 others who had fought together and trusted each other absolutely. They had 3 days to prepare. The insertion went perfectly. A small stealth ship dropped them at the edge of the system. They used individual thrust packs to reach the planet, moving between asteroids and debris to avoid sensors. The journey took 18 hours. 18 hours of floating in the void. Alone with their thoughts, Tay used the time to review everything Sung had taught him about swarm biology. They were a hive mind, but not truly individual consciousness. More like cells in a body. The structure they were building was likely a central coordination node. Destroy it, and the entire swarm in the system would lose cohesion. Landing on the planet was the easy part. The hard part was reaching the structure. It stood in the middle of a massive swarm gathering. Thousands of drones moved around it constantly, adding to its construction. "We will never fight through that," Krava said, looking at the situation. "We do not fight through it," Tay replied. "We go under it." Sung had discovered something interesting about the planet. Extensive cave systems ran beneath the surface. The swarm was building on top of them, likely not even aware they existed. The team could move through the caves and emerge directly beneath the structure. They entered the caves and descended into darkness. The tunnels were tight, winding, and treacherous. Perfect for humans. Difficult for larger species. The Krell struggled, but they kept moving. 12 hours through the dark, guided only by Sung's mapping equipment, they emerged in a massive cavern directly below the target. Above them, visible through cracks in the rock, the swarm structure pulsed with organic light. Charges placed here, here, and here will cause a complete structural collapse, Sung said, marking locations. The structure will fall into the cavern. The resulting damage should destroy the coordination node and bring every swarm drone in the system down on our heads, Velzara added. "Which is why we split up," Tay said. "Half the team sets the charges. The other half creates a distraction on the surface. Draw the drones away. When the charges blow, the distraction team retreats to the extraction point." "What about the team setting the charges?" a human soldier asked. Tay did not answer immediately. Everyone knew the truth. The team in the cavern would likely be buried when the structure collapsed. But someone had to place the charges. Someone had to stay until the last possible moment to ensure they detonated correctly. "I will lead the charge team," Tay said finally. "Volunteers only." Velzara stepped forward immediately. "Where you go, I go." "That is Velkara." Krava joined them. "And where the commander goes, I follow." Sung smiled weakly. "Someone needs to make sure you press the right buttons." 10 others volunteered. The remaining 16 would create the distraction. The plan executed flawlessly at first. The distraction team hit the swarm from 3 directions, using explosives and chaos to draw attention. Thousands of drones swarmed toward the noise. Below, Tay's team worked frantically to place charges. The explosives had to be positioned perfectly. Too weak, and the structure would not fall completely. Too strong, and the cavern would collapse on them before they could escape. "Charges set," Sung announced. "Timer set for 5 minutes. We need to move now." They ran. The cavern was massive, but the tunnels leading out were narrow. Behind them, the timer counted down. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. The ground above them shook as the distraction team kept the swarm occupied. 2 minutes. The tunnel ahead collapsed. Rocks blocked their path completely. "Alternative route," Sung said. already checking his maps. Back 30 meters, side passage to the left. They backtracked. The side passage was even narrower. Tay squeezed through, helping pull others behind him. Velzara got stuck, her larger frame wedged between rocks. Krava and Tay pulled her free, tearing her armor. 1 minute. They emerged into another cavern, this one with multiple exits. That one, Sung pointed, leads to the surface half a mile from the extraction point. 30 seconds. They sprinted. The tunnel angled upward sharply. Tay's legs burned. Behind him, he heard Velzara breathing hard. Even Krell had limits. 10 seconds. Light appeared ahead, the tunnel exit. They burst out onto the planet's surface just as the charges detonated. The ground shook like an earthquake. The swarm structure cracked, tilted, and fell into the cavern below. The sound was deafening. The coordination node, the thing the swarm had spent weeks building, shattered into pieces. Above them, in orbit, something changed. The swarm ships lost formation. They began drifting, firing randomly, colliding with each other. Without the coordination node, the hive mind fractured. Individual drones could not organize, could not adapt, could not function as a unified force. The Concordat fleet, waiting at the system's edge, moved in. Not for a pitched battle, but for cleanup. Destroying confused, directionless ships was simple. Tay lay on the ground, breathing hard. Around him, his team did the same. They had made it. Against all odds, they had survived. Velzara crawled over to sit beside him. Her armor was torn. Blood ran from a cut above her eye. But she was smiling. "You did it, little hunter. You killed the unkillable enemy. We did it," Tay corrected. "All of us." The extraction ship arrived an hour later. The flight back to the Concordat fleet felt surreal. Tay could not quite believe they had succeeded, that the swarm, the terror of the galaxy, had been broken not by overwhelming force, but by a small team willing to go where no one thought possible. The Concordat Council met 3 days later. The war was over. The swarm had retreated to the outer reaches of the galaxy. Projections suggested they would not return for decades, if ever. Tay and Velzara stood before the council once more, but this time they were not asking permission. They were receiving honors, medals, recognition, words of thanks from species that had once laughed at the idea of humans in combat. After the ceremony, Tay and Velzara walked through the station's observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them. "What will you do now?" Velzara asked. "Return to Earth? Resume your engineering career?" Tay considered the question. Months ago, he would have said yes immediately. He never wanted to be a warrior. But that was before. Before he learned what he was capable of. Before he found a family in Velzara's warband. Before he discovered that being human meant never giving up, no matter how impossible the odds. "I think I will stay," Tay said finally. "If you will still have me." Velzara's smile was genuine. "I claimed you once as my warrior. I was wrong about one thing, though. I said you belonged to me. But humans cannot be claimed. You can only be befriended or feared. You are still my battle partner, though," Tay said. "Right?" Velzara placed her clawed hand on his shoulder, the gesture that had become their bond. "Until the stars go cold." Tay of Earth. Until the stars go cold. They stood together, watching the stars. Behind them, Sung was already planning their next mission. Krava was gathering the warband. Admiral Day was establishing permanent human liaison positions with alien forces. The galaxy had learned something important. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the toughest. But they were something far more dangerous. They were the species that never stopped coming, the hunters who never quit, the warriors who adapted to any challenge, and that made all the difference.